Ask and you shall receive, and your free will. This message is really going to be about how strong your free will is, whether you realize it or not. So this topic was inspired because I was reflecting on van life, and I was reflecting on, just my experience with van life and my experience with tent life. Like many of you guys know, I lived in a van, broken down van most of the time, and a glamping tent. It was like this beautiful canvas camp glamping tent, which I loved that little era this past year, in Italy, and then in Ireland, and kind of all over Europe with the van for a little bit when it was driving. And I think that a lot of people go into a lifestyle like van life or tent life, or like just any kind of lifestyle where there's minimal costs, because they want to use it as an opportunity to gain more, to like get leverage, to get a few steps ahead in their pursuit of building financial freedom and whatnot. And I do think that you can do it. I do think that it's possible, but I think that I have an observation of people removing a lot of their costs and then hoping for more. And there's like a missing piece to the whole thing that could or could not make it successful. And so a lot of people, will leave their apartment, like this is just an example, but leave their apartment or their home and like go live in a van because they want the opportunity to, like I was saying, like get leverage and make more income online in their business and blah, blah, blah. If you don't do that with the background choice of what it is that you are desiring, like an actual number, and you take yourself serious about it, then the vibration is, well, I only need to make enough to pay gas, and I only need to make enough to blah, 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 and like pay this and pay that. And like that is the vibration agreement that your free will has chosen. A lot of people will say, like, when you live in California, you get used to it. The prices in California are very high, if you don't know. They're like ridiculously high, but it's the same thing as like anywhere really. Like when I was looking at moving to Tennessee and different states, when I had first gone through my breakup and I was single and like had to figure out life on my own for the first time in 4 years, in my mid-20s, I was like, oh, I'll go somewhere cheaper. But there's a cost of living everywhere that you go, especially if you're looking for a place on your own. And so people will say that when you leave California, that it's really hard to go back. And that is because you then set your new bar at a certain level. It's like when I was living in Italy and I got used to buying my coffee for €1, because I was in the countryside, so it was like much cheaper than you would get in like a major city. But coffee is €1. I think even still in like Rome and whatnot, it was like €1, €2. And like at the store, you get a bag of espresso for like €1. And then I bought the same exact bag of espresso in Ireland for €20. And I was like, oh my God. And that's just because then we get used to this way of living. And so when you have to make rent, say your rent is like €2,000, $2,000, and you have to make that every single month, then you are putting out into the universe, into the vibration, into the field, your field. You're saying, I need to make this amount. And typically most will make that, like it can be, if you are like, no matter what, I have to make this, I have to pay my rent. I am paying my rent. I always pay my rent. If you have those beliefs, then the money comes out in like either in your job, and you always have a job and it always works out. Or if you're like a business owner, then you always get the client at the right amount of time and blah, 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 and the product sells and blah, blah, blah. But when you minimize your costs, and you get used to living down there then becomes this like gap where you're used to paying a very small amount and you're, you know, if you're dreaming of having a bigger life, you have to really take yourself so seriously to choose that you have to make this amount, like that this is the bare minimum of what you're willing to accept. And you have to believe that that is going to happen. You have to believe that it is possible. Like when you signed up for an apartment for €2,000, $2,000, you believe that you're going to be able to make that every single month. And so you have to believe that you are able to bring in this amount of money if that is what you are desiring. And so I think that like you can do that while living in a van life. It's just, or like in a smaller cost requirement life, you know what I'm saying? But it's all about free will. It's all about the frequency. It's all about you setting the tone of exactly what it is that you need to make. And so if you're currently in a timeline where you're at a certain amount of income and you want to increase that income, you want to have a different lifestyle, and that other lifestyle is blah, 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 you have to really, like I was just saying, bring yourself to choosing it with your free will and making it like a non-negotiable. Like you know this is the amount, you choose it, it is going to happen, it is definitely going to happen, there is no other option, blah, blah, blah. And then it starts happening. But like if you say you're in a lease and like your landlord's really relaxed and whatever, and you watch your parents like sometimes be late on payments, and you are like you just are okay, there's like a part of you that is okay with paying a little bit late, because like you're not so afraid of the consequences that you are, but you know you'll be okay. If you even have that like sliver of leeway, then you risk that becoming your reality. But if you are so firm with yourself that this is, sorry, it's so windy and stormy. I was gonna walk to co-working. I'm glad I did not. But when you set that bar and you say, I'm not settling for anything less, then it starts happening. You start getting the ideas. Everything starts coming to you. And it's like, it's not just going to magically happen either. Like sometimes it will, especially if you already created the foundation for the income to come. Like you've created the product, you've created the business, you've opened the door for the, you know, the transaction to happen or whatever it is. But most of the time you have to take action. Like you have to be willing to take action, but you will get those ideas of how to make it happen. So like inevitably, if you say, I have to make X amount now, I am making X amount now, I choose that I am making this amount this month, blah, blah, blah. And that is, and then take action when you get the idea. And that is how you like climb your way out of, I think, like a smaller lifestyle. And so for me, I think that I got used to, I definitely got out of, you know, the mindset of having to pay California prices. I guess to my benefit, had a lot of like repairs and whatnot in my van, and so it was kind of like paying rent. But then when I was in Ireland, I started doing my dream life sleep hypnosis, and because I was programming in while I was sleeping the amount of income that I was having, the amount of, you know, views I was getting on my videos, like just the abundance, everything just started opening up so quickly, you know, like my videos started going viral. I got over 50,000 followers in like a month, and like all these things just started taking off, which then supported me in getting a house here in Portugal to live in. And then it's like every month, it's so interesting seeing how the universe responds to me now having bills and utilities and like all these things. And it's just like, it's like, okay, like that is the bare minimum now. And it's like, and then the universe responds and gives me, you know, more ideas, more people buying my programs, more viral videos, like brand deals, like brands have been reaching out more, and agency, like a brand agency just that I was working with before, they reached out with an opportunity that's like perfectly aligned. And so like all these things. And so part of it is like me taking action. The other part is that I already set up the foundation for the money to come in, and now it comes in at a different rate because I've set the new bar of like, this is my new standard of living. And so I was listening to someone speak about wealth and like money patterns and money beliefs. And she was saying how when she was scaling her business, I believe her business is like worth billions. I'm pretty sure she said billions, if not hundreds of millions, but I'm pretty sure she said like collectively they're billions. When she was first scaling her business, like in the first 3 years, she was, you know, making $50,000 a month, and then she invested in a coach for $40,000 a month. And like, that sounds really fucking terrifying, right? But she knew that if she was setting her bar at $40,000 a month for a coach, then like that was, and she didn't say this exactly, but my perspective was that then she's saying like, this is, you know, this is what I need to have the coach, and then I need to double my income so that I can have my house and food and blah, 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 blah. And then she did, and grew them to millions and millions and millions. And it's also, she said the same thing for getting an assistant. It's like when she was barely making enough to have an assistant, she got one right away, because then she set the tone in the universe. She's like, I am someone who has an assistant. I am someone who has employees. I am someone who takes action. But there is a certain money pattern belief. I'm going to try and link this video because I thought it was really good, but remind me in the comments if I forget. One of the money patterns is like, when you have money coming in, you hold on to it, right? And you're too afraid to spend it. And so money wants to be spent. Abundance wants to flow freely. And it's like I've always talked about on here, the relationship with money. And so when you look at money like another person, if you were always saying, I don't trust you, you're always with other people, you don't spend enough time with me, you don't come into my life enough, and like blah, 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 I don't even think you like me, like other people better, like that person would be like, I don't know about all that. Like I'll come check in on you sometimes, but you kind of like hold on real tight, and like you're a little possessive and a little, you know, all this stuff. But if you were like, okay, you know, I freely trust that if I spend $2,000 on rent, if I spend blah, blah, blah on an assistant, if I spend blah, 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 that you come back to me tenfold, whatever it is, whatever you set it at, whatever you believe you can make in return. And so you set it at that. and then there's that open flow of energy where that relationship gets to then thrive. And money wants to do that. Money wants to ebb and flow and come back and forth and back and forth. It wants to dance in your life. It doesn't have to go from like 100 to 0 and 100 to 0. You could set it at a different rate. But if we constrict it so much, then we're not allowing that flow. So if we're bringing down our costs to a minimal amount, it can be very helpful for certain reasons. But if we get too comfortable there, and then we hold on to what we do have there, and then we're like, well, we only need like, you know, X amount for gas and blah, 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 then that's setting the tone. So with all that being said, I thought this was an interesting topic, and I feel like I could elaborate more on it as I wrap my head more around it. But whatever you are at right now with your need for income, look at that honestly and say, okay, like I've set the tone, like this is how much I need to make, and this is how much I am making. And maybe you have a belief that you're always like a little bit behind, or that like things are hard to pay off or whatever. You can change all your beliefs. You can change your energy in a relationship with money very quickly, with consistency and with honesty, and by setting the new bar at what you actually want it to be at. while you're still in this perceived reality. So the mind, the body doesn't know the difference. Your field, your frequency doesn't know the difference when you're visualizing and when you're actually perceiving your reality. And so you can visualize that you are in that timeline where you need to make a mortgage of $20,000 for your multi-million-dollar home, and like that's easy peasy, and you bring in tenfold that a month, like if that is your desire. And so I think that, you know, there's also, there's so much more to van life. Like van life can be like, for me, it was a choice of, it's like getting super bright. It was a choice of wanting to travel. Like I always just like really admired van life and like people doing van life. And I just thought that people were really like so free spirited and everything. And I loved the chapter, but I also just had a different experience with it. And I'm excited too. I'm happy to be back in house life. Part of me like really, and I talk about this often, but a part of me really wants to do sale life at some point. Once I have a partner, I think, a sale partner or someone who is willing to learn to sail with me whenever that time comes. But I was just kind of considering, I was like, okay, when I first arrived to Portugal, I was feeling very homesick, and I was like, maybe I will move back to California or to the States after this. And so then I had to think about that, and I was like, do I really want to do that? And anyway, I don't think I'm going to do that. I've shared that I think I will do 6 months here and 6 months in Italy, and then like just do that for a while. We'll see. But I started looking at that. I was like, it's so fascinating how like it was very relatively easy to make that jump from not having rent and like living on the farm in Italy, and my exchange for living on the farm in Italy was the value that I brought to the farm, which was helping with marketing and blah, blah, blah. But now then I just had to rewire myself again to get into the habit of owning things, renting things, and having consistent payments, and then that became the normal. And now I visualize the normal of what the next chapter looks like consistently, and in my Dream Life Sleep Hypnosis and in my No phase. So if you want to sign up for Dream Life Sleep Hypnosis, it is linked below. Let me know what you guys think of this, and like if this made sense. I'm still not sure if it made sense. But your free will is everything, and what you ask for, you will receive. What you believe you are capable of receiving, you will receive. What you believe will be your outcome will be your outcome. It is so simple, but we overthink it. Like yesterday, my Salma, which is my EMF device, it was on my counter next to my water, because I leave it next to my water jug, my water filter. It's kind of like, it's called Radiant Life, the brand that I use, but it's similar to Berkey. And so anyway, I keep them next to each other because the thing charges the water. And this, I've never, ever had this problem, but I was like, I should be really careful. Like if I spill water when I'm filling up the top. And like, this is kind of a dangerous spot for this thing. And then I just like moved it over slightly. And then of course I spilt water, and I never normally spilt water. But that was my focus. That was my fear. That was my belief of what could happen. And then it happened. And I was like so quickly reminded, like, we need to be so aware of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of our, you know, what we set in motion. And our lifestyle has to support who we want to become. I'll leave this little thought that I have right now, where I am following this fitness girl on Instagram, and she was living in Bali, and she left Bali. She had built her business there to like whatever it is now, but she left Bali, went to Miami, and from my perspective, she got an apartment that's probably like way more expensive than what she was paying in Bali. And what she has shared is that she wants to be around other people who are, you know, making more and spending more, and like at that other bar of belief about what is possible for them, and also their bare minimum. It's like, there's some other way to call it, their bare minimum of what they're willing to accept in their life, because they need it, because they've set the bar at that. And so she chose to immerse herself in that because that was, you know, from my perspective, calibrating her energy to where she wanted to take her life next. And on the other side of all this, like there's also so much beauty in living small. Like there's so much beauty in just kind of living off the land and living just with what you need and not consuming so much more and like all that. So I don't think that there is a right way to do it. I think it's just fascinating to observe like the neuroscience behind it, the neural pathways that are formed with it, the power of the free will, like our navigation of the quantum field. I personally love luxury. I also love getting my hands in the dirt and like living on a farm. But I like, in this current reality, which we live in, I like living a lifestyle where there is, you know, financial freedom. That is definitely something that I strive for, and I don't agree with or resonate with like the spiritual community making, like, demonizing money and making it seem bad to want money and bad to want things, and like consumerism is evil. I think we came to Earth to experience Earth. Like, someone created those beautiful homes that you want. Someone created that beautiful furniture you want to decorate that dream home with. You know, someone designed a beautiful airplane with a luxury seat and a comfy padding, and like they designed the flow of the flight attendants bringing you, you know, a cozy little warmed up water bottle or whatever. Like that is not a bad thing to want. If it makes you happy, it is okay to want it. Don't let anybody make you think that the things that you are desiring are bad because they are money. Like, I'm grateful I never was conditioned with that. That's not my money belief. Like, my parents were both entrepreneurs, and so I got to see that from a young age. Like, I don't have a belief that money is evil. I have other beliefs about money, but like not necessarily that. And so I think that's why I've always accepted that part of myself that really does enjoy nice things. And like, one day I will be driving a G-Wagon and have multiple homes all over the world, and like that's my choice and my freedom and my own human experience to have. So let me know if this landed with you. If you want to sign up for any of the programs, they're linked below. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.